and welcome to a special edition of The Social Network. I'm Rishika Barwal. This festive season, Diwali ads have been the talk of the town. Well, mostly because of the intolerance and the pushback against them, sadly. But today on the show, we're going to talk about one ad campaign that the internet cannot stop talking about. Hashtag not just a Cadbury ad. We'll tell you what this campaign is all about. Essentially, a campaign that's used artificial intelligence to recreate Shah Rukh Khan's face and voice, so every local retailer can make their own ad with Shah Rukh Khan as a brand ambassador. Now, this campaign is trending on the internet. We'll try and understand why and what's the tech behind making this happen. Also, on the show, a Tinder film titled Closure has started a very important, a very nuanced conversation on social media around the idea of consent. What does consent mean in online dating, and how the lack of a no should not be mistaken for a yes. So that conversation is coming up in just a short while from now. But first, this Diwali, not just a Cadbury ad, is an ad campaign that has gone viral. Now, the Cadbury campaign has Shah Rukh Khan as brand ambassador, and this campaign has been trending pretty much ever since the campaign actually hit. It's been trending on the internet, and not just because Shah Rukh Khan is the brand ambassador and because he's been in the news, but because the campaign actually uses artificial intelligence to create a deep fake of Shah Rukh Khan so that he can become a brand ambassador for every local small business. Machine learning has been used to recreate Shah Rukh Khan's voice and his facial expressions. 5 digital avatars of Shah Rukh Khan, 40 plus voice models were created for this campaign. Local stores can basically log on to the Cadbury website, follow simple steps and create their own ad with SRK. And what we are learning is that over 1 lakh local stores have already created their own ad with Shah Rukh as a brand ambassador. The people behind this ad campaign join us on the social network today. But first, let's take a look at this campaign.
Big businesses and brands that suffered during the pandemic found their way back, but the smaller stores still suffer. This Diwali, we helped hundreds of small businesses by making India's biggest brand ambassador be their brand ambassador.
इस दिवाली आप भी ना अपने पास वाले फैशन और एम्पोरियम से ही कपड़ों की शॉपिंग करना।
क्या कर रहे हो? मीठा लाए कि नहीं?
लाए हो ना यार, अपने पास वाले रोशन किराना से। आप भी अपना मीठा वहीं से लेना।
We used machine learning to recreate Shah Rukh Khan's face and voice to take the local store names in the ads.
इस दिवाली आप भी ना अपने पास वाले चॉइस ऑफ फैशन से ही कपड़ों की शॉपिंग करना। पास वाले आजकल फैशन से ही कपड़ों की शॉपिंग करना। इस दिवाली आप भी ना अपने पास।
Different versions of the same ad with local store names were targeted as per the pin code of the viewer.
हमारे आसपास की जो दुकानें हैं, उनकी दिवाली भी तो मीठी होनी चाहिए।
Cadbury celebrations, not just a Cadbury ad.
Alright, so well, at a time when Diwali ads have been in the news for all the wrong reasons, here's a campaign that's actually helped local businesses during the pandemic. Sukesh Naik, Chief Creative Officer of Ogilvy India, joins us. Sanil Vishwanathan, Senior Director Marketing, Mondelez India, and Ashray Malhotra, CEO and co-founder of Rephrase.ai are all with us. These are all people who have essentially been behind the scenes in making this possible. I want to understand from you, Sukesh Naik, if I can come to you first. The idea, the concept makes so much sense, at a time when local businesses have been so hard hit because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Some say now they are stumbling back to a sense of normalcy. So take us through a little bit of what went down in sort of conceptualizing this ad for every Kirana store.
Hi, thank you. Lovely. I can tell you, it's a part of a brand platform. That's the most important thing for us to understand. We stand for generosity, and this work on this platform, which is a global platform, we've been working on this for a couple of years now. So a lot of work has happened, and the first time we did this was last year, in the Diwali of last year, when we realized the same understanding we had that as a brand, we create work for our sellers. And what about the ones who don't have any help to create any kind of communication for them? And this was the idea that originated at that last Diwali, which was, why not we do something for the small sellers who have no help, and they also need help to kind of get a support system going for Diwali. And that was the last year edition, and the feedback on that was tremendous. And we saw so much pride of our sellers when we went to the market, how proud they were that, the guy next door, who he's also in my ad. And that was the best thing. And they felt so great about the company that they associated with, the ones that they represent in the market. And then we saw the same feedback from even consumers who saw their local stores in the ads that was served to them. So that was last year, right? So now come to this year again, in the month of August, we are thinking what to do this year, Diwali. And we had many ideas. And then one of the things, we took a call saying that we must continue with not just Cadbury ad this year too. That was the first thing that we agreed as a team. And then now comes the challenge. We've done something last year. How do you think of an idea which is going to take everyone's notice? And here we are talking about it, right? So what do you do again? What do you do? Because we know what we have to do. We have to obviously, as part of generosity, do something for the small sellers. And this is where the concept was, at Ogilvy, which we thought of in one line, as it is said, that what if a brand ambassador, who is India's one of the biggest brand ambassador, can be a brand ambassador for all the small stores that are there? And what if, using technology, we do something where they can personalize the ad, they can make the ad happen for them. And this is what we took to us, which is our entire team, which is Waymaker, and all of us took it to Mondelez, and we spoke to Anil and his team, and they were, this is fantastic, we must do it. Right. And now starts the how to make it happen. And then comes Akshay and his team. They were brilliant, they were absolutely amazing. And I think the way they put this together for us as I always believe ideas are extremely important, because ideas change in the conversation that we have. But at the same time, our partners make it really happen very, very beautifully. Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of partnerships, I'm of course, very confused about how the tech of this works, as I'm sure a lot of our viewers are too. So we'll bring in Ashray to simplify that in just a bit. But Anil Vishwanathan, this ad campaign raised eyebrows for a lot of different reasons. One, of course, is because simply brilliant that you're enabling your local kirana store, cloth store to create an ad using Shah Rukh as a brand ambassador and also targeted to that local geographical area. So it checks all the boxes. But, coming out with an ad that had Shah Rukh at a time when there was so much backlash against the actor online, was this a calculated risk? I know this campaign was done much earlier, much before the entire Aryan Khan controversy happened. But what made you stick with him?
Thanks, Rishika. I think what the question that you're asking is a question that we're always faced with every time we launch a new campaign. In an environment today where everybody can have an opinion and everybody likes to have an opinion, we do know that every time we put out something new, we're going to get a response. And hence, quite often, it's a question that, comes to us, and we also ask ourselves, saying, how do we decide, what kind of response something is going to get, and how do we go ahead with some things? And I think fundamentally, Rishika, there what's helped us is clarity to say, why is the brand putting out that idea? What is in it for the brand? Does it reflect something core to the brand? Does it reflect something the brand has said in the past? Does it reflect the values that the brand espouses? Right? And if it's clear that the brand needs to say something, then we found that over a period of time, that becomes much easier for us to then decide whether you want to go ahead with something that we want to say, as against try and double guess what the response is going to be. Because once you start double guessing, you just go down that rabbit hole, and you're constantly trying to figure out what will work and what won't. So I think the starting point was, as Sukesh said, we were very clear that we wanted to support the small retailers this year again. Last year was very good, and we were very clear that we wanted to support it. So that was the first tick. The second is with Ashray's and his team, we had already done a little bit of a test pilot in Rakhi, and that itself was very successful. We did that with the Ritik production in Rakhi, and we were very excited with that idea. And Ashray and his team, of course, is fantastic partners,
Yes.
the way they've, kind of technology alive. So, so the tech was also starting to evolve, and we were a bit confident that we can make the tech work. So we knew the tech would work. I mean, of course, science has always been a big constraint, and there was a big if, but the teams were very confident.
Okay.
And the idea was clear. So when the tech and the idea came together, Rishika, was quite clear that we could go ahead with it. I mean, I'd be lying to say that we didn't have sleepless nights, that we didn't have a plan B. But I think since...
but did the thought cross your mind? I'm sure the thought crossed your mind. I'm sure there were meetings that happened back end to decide or take a decision on whether you're going forward with Shah Rukh or not, given, the timing of it, couldn't have been better or worse, whichever way you want to look at it.
Absolutely. We were having sleepless nights. But I think what gave us the clarity to go was the fact that the idea was there and the tech was there, and we felt that this message had to be told.
Okay.
And of course, we had our our back-end teams working towards a plan B and ensuring that we try and manage whatever kind of the responses be.
Okay.
And truth told, and
it's paid off. I have to say that it's paid off. I mean, 20 million views and counting, and I'm just looking purely at YouTube, and of course the hashtag's been trending. But Ashray, tell us how can this ad that we're seeing essentially play out on our screen? How can there be 1 lakh such ads made so quickly by every local kirana store? How have you done this? What happens in the back end? Explain it to our viewers.
Thank you so much, Rishika, for having me, and thanks Anil and Sukesh for coming up with this amazing concept of delivering these ads to every single retailer. So Rishika, this has been hard work of, I would say, one of the best AI teams in the country for building this technology for the last 3 years. The way this works is we take a few minutes of the video of a person looking into the camera and speaking something, based on which we're able to create a machine learning cloned model of how the person looks and a digital clone of their voice. Once we have this digital clones created, we are then able to feed in new text, so say a new store name or say a new person name or something, and create new videos of, say, Shah Rukh or any other actor actually speaking in that voice, and his lips and facial structure moving according to the new text that gets fed in.
Well, this is fascinating, but explain to me, Ashray, the next question that comes to mind is it can also be very dangerous and can be misused. So is there that angle of it that's been factored in as well, the misuse of something like this?
Absolutely. This is an incredibly powerful technology that has like a scope for extremely great things and also extremely terrible things. So again, we take a lot of responsibility and do multiple steps to make sure that bad things do not happen with this. First is we actually sign agreements with the brand, with the actors, to make sure that they're comfortable with this. So if anyone and no one else can say come with Shah Rukh's online data and just like give it to us and like now make him speak something else, we work with the consent of people to make sure that they are comfortable with this going out. Secondly, we have rigid quality control checks. So we've of course have like a basic AI layer that checks on all the data that comes in. So say would a person be okay saying that or not? But we also have manual process in the backend for every single name that comes in to make sure that that is something that you would be comfortable with.
Okay.
At the core, what we want to ensure is that this technology gets used to help scale people's time, but not safe for work kind of messages.
Right. Very interesting. Last word to you, Sukesh, at a time when ad campaigns have been in the news, mostly because of the intolerance against them and the kind of pushback online. Are there no-go areas? I mean, you went ahead, you all did this ad with Shah Rukh and it's of course worked out brilliantly for you. But are there now no-go areas? Is there like a line that you don't cross anymore when you're sort of building ad campaigns, given the kind of intolerance, hate, takedown threats that we are seeing online against ads?
I think the answer is if you have a larger narrative in mind and you're part of the narrative, then I don't think you're going to have such a bigger issue. If you do something which is a knee-jerk, which is just a tactical thing, and a link to some occasion, which has no link to... So what I'm trying to say is consumer has seen this brand Cadbury, for example, doing something of this kind for last, say, X amount of years. And even then, like Anil rightly said, you're never going to win everybody. You're not going to win everybody. You're not going to win. And I think it's impossible task at hand to win everyone. But we knew for certain that this is part of a larger conversation. People have appreciated us for what we have been doing. Hence, we took that call to go ahead. So that's how we go decide. And as a creative person, if you're asking me,
But as a creative person, do you tread with caution now? More now than ever before? Let me rephrase that.
No, I don't. I think my job, honestly, as what I do today, is to find ways to engage with people. And I must engage with people where it is my first and the foremost task. I don't want to be into sensationalization. I don't think my job is to do anything of that kind. I want to find ideas. And yes, the ideas would be brave. Ideas would be challenging. Ideas would have a difficulty of acceptability. Sure. Yeah, but I think as we do things a lot before we put anything out, because we have to understand what we are saying. And the last thing I want to say is that we should not do things as topical for the sake of one occasion. I think a brand, if your brand, since you're creating something for a brand, if a brand has a narrative and you're part of that narrative, you're fine then.
Okay. All right. Very interesting. And this ad campaign, of course, has been, extremely good for more reasons than one. Congratulations to this entire team. And may more and more local businesses benefit from Shah Rukh as their brand ambassador. I'm going to slip into a very short break. Coming up on the other side, we have a very important conversation around consent in online dating. And we'll be joined by a panel of experts to break it down for you. So stay with us. Welcome back. Tinder India has swiped right on the idea of consent. A new campaign titled Closure started an important conversation online around the idea of consent. The campaign puts the focus on talking about consent, asking for it, and highlights how a lack of a no shouldn't necessarily be mistaken as a yes, and also a yes in one situation is not necessarily a yes in every situation. Take a look. All right, joining us for this important conversation around consent, we have Taru Kapoor, GM, Tinder Match Group India, Kevin Lee, Editor-in-Chief, Yuva, worked very closely on this campaign. We also have two Tinder users, Joshua Benjamin and Ashish Srivastav, for reactions on how the communities actually received this campaign. But Taru Kapoor, to you first. Congratulations on what I think is a fantastic conversation, and you've clearly started an important conversation. What made you go ahead and do it, and why is this more important now perhaps than ever before?
Thanks, Rishika. I think this is a conversation that there is no good time to begin, and it's a beginning for us. It's a very, very important conversation, as you said. And for us at Tinder, it's a foundational value. From the day, the very first beta product of Tinder was released 9 years ago, it was based on this very fundamental idea that your interest and your desire and your acceptance is just as important as mine, which means that two people have to express interest in each other by swiping right before they can talk. And they have the option to withdraw that consent at any point of time, which is so no unsolicited messages, no harassment. And it's, all women in India, including me who've grown up here, we are very familiar with this concept of unsolicited attention, online, offline. And unfortunately, in this country, particularly, like popular culture blurs these ideas of lines of consent. We don't actually talk about it as a society. Youngsters don't have a very good understanding of how to navigate situations and what it means. And so, we constantly talk to our users, our members, and then we heard that consent was a topic which Gen Z in particular feels extremely strongly about, and it's not something that we, talk about enough. So we said, let's start conversations.
Kevin, if I can bring you in here, you've worked very closely with Tinder on this campaign. Explain to us why this conversation is so important now, given the sort of rise or proliferation of dating apps in this post-pandemic era, and also how there's this very beautiful message in the film that actually says that a lack of a no doesn't necessarily mean a yes, and the onus lies on both men and women. You have to ask and you have to explicitly say a yes or a no.
Yeah,
absolutely. Thanks, Rishika. I think the conversation is extremely important in the post-pandemic era, primarily because people sometimes misassociate consent only with physical acts of intimacy. Whereas it is something that could easily apply to virtual acts of intimacy as well. A lot of people, especially students, have gone back to their homes. They're not in the cities where they're studying. They're interacting with new people and they're meeting these people through dating apps. It becomes very important to establish early on that consent is a thing, because consent really lays the foundation of what a good relationship is going to be, because the concept of boundaries, the concept of taking your body seriously, right? So I think that that's the reason that it's really important to have this conversation now. But another point to what you added about a lack of a yes definitely meaning a no, I think the dangerous thing is that everybody is expected to understand consent and nobody wants to admit that they might not understand it. So the challenge of the campaign was explaining it even to people who think that they understand consent, bringing out these smaller nuances that they might not know, because you don't want to risk hurting somebody just because you didn't know enough about consent. So that's what the campaign is really.
Ashi, as a woman and as somebody who's on Tinder, you know, what did this film say to you? Because, you know, when I looked at this film, I think one of the key messages was that the onus also lies in a certain sense on the woman to be able to say a firm yes or a no. And silence really, you know, can of course be misconstrued either way. What did you think of that?
So, even like in general in our society, consent is something that is not usually talked about enough. After the movie, I think we all understood how important it is to talk about consent, because again, like you say, a lot of times it is expected that the woman, if she doesn't say a yes, if she doesn't say a no, it means that, you know, she's okay with it and you can go ahead with it. But again, like unless and until you properly ask for it and you get a yes in return and you know that it is okay to do so, that is only when you should go ahead with it.
Right.
And that is what the movie has portrayed beautifully.
Joshua, you know, I want to come to you in the end because you said something very interesting when we spoke earlier, that this film was an eye-opener.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely it was. Because if you think about it this way, before this entire film came out, right, it was mostly because like people don't want to actually talk about it much, all right? It's something that people don't want to really express. And if you really talk about it, then they're like, just let it be. Let's just talk about something else. Let's just change the topic, etc., etc. But since this film came out, it was actually a very big eye opener, because now people are like, no, you know what? Let's do talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's an uncomfortable conversation that many people have begun to have online courtesy this new campaign. It's a story we'll continue to track very closely. Thank you all very much for joining us on the social network. I'm afraid that's all the time we have. Short break, news and updates continue.